Well, I have got Cern Basher here this morning, and we could just go right into the slideshow, Cern, but we would be remiss on a day when, as we're recording this, Tesla's up over $13 to not use our combined knowledge, experience, talent, skill sets to cleverly explain why the stock is up 13 bucks. You go first.
It's easy, Randy. More buyers than sellers.
Oh yeah, that's always your answer. You need a new answer.
It's always the answer. It's the right answer every single time.
Well, I have been admitting all morning on X that I have no idea what's going on. Maybe more generally, I know you don't watch these things from day to day, but maybe more generally, I'm a little shocked that the market this morning is reacting favorably to the good economic news. And Tesla is partially riding on the back of that, but it's way more than that because it's up so much. The good economic news, meaning the markets that the business is good and labor's not in as much trouble as they thought. And yet the bond market seems to be reading that as, oh, maybe the Fed won't cut after all. But the stock market's going, well, if they don't cut, they don't cut. I don't know. Any thoughts at all?
Well, it's the strange thing of bad news is normally good news for the stock market, but you don't want the bad news to be too bad. Although if it is too bad, then the Fed comes to the rescue, and that's good.
Good.
So it's this Goldilocks situation in between these scenarios. Yeah, it's a mystery to me, Randy, and I've been doing this 30 years.
Yeah, well, it is this. I mean, again, yeah, I kind of thought that the early bump was not a surprise because that, retail number coming in, I could see where people would take that as a good thing. But then when you start reading what's happening in Philadelphia, New York, and some of these other reports that came in, it was like, well, wait a minute, is it as good a news as we think? And or when the bonds jump 12 basis points, that's a signal that they don't think the cut's going to happen. Anyway, all right, I'm going to leave it there, and just fun that Tesla's having a great day. And maybe this is the beginning of FOMO. I keep thinking that at some point people are going to start buying into the 10-10. So
yeah, no, I think there's that, and there's some other good things coming down the pipe. But we will see. But let's start with the here and now.
All right, well, all right.
All right. Here is a live image of the port in Shanghai.
Oh, all right.
I don't know how live it is, but it's a recent image.
Yeah.
And Randy, can you count the number of cars? How many cars do you think are here?
I cannot. I would have, it's one of those jars with the jelly beans in them, right?
Yeah, I'll give you 1 second. What's your number?
4,000.
Close. I believe there's something between 3,600 and 3,700 cars in this photo.
Wow. Hey, do I get a prize?
You were very close.
Yeah.
But you had to be within 10%. I'm not sure that you quite made it.
Have you ever been to one of these ports? We were over in South Korea about 3 years ago, and we drove by the ports down there with all those Hondas and Kias going out. And man, it was impressive to see in real life.
I have not seen this. It's an amazing thing to see, and occasionally I've been known to just watch the drone videos of them loading the cars on the ships.
Yeah.
For some reason, that's just a very relaxing thing for me to watch.
Right.
Don't do that very often, but every now and then. Anyway, I thought that was a beautiful image for this week.
Yeah.
Speaking of other beautiful images, this is courtesy of AJ, as we're want to highlight some of his work. He does some great work on Tesla. And he did some interesting analysis on the EV market in China. So he's tracking a mere 193 different battery electric models.
193.
Yeah. They're all shown on this chart. However, because there's so many, you won't find the labels for all of them.
Yeah.
But the number one vehicle there on the left, the highest bar on the left, is the Tesla Model Y.
Right.
Now, the Model 3 is in this chart as well, but you won't find the label anywhere.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't know exactly where it is, but somewhere, on this left side,
Uh-huh.
in terms of Model 3s. So the Tesla Model Y has about a 9% market share over the last 12 months. Okay, with 473,000 sales. And the next vehicle on the list is the BYD Seagull, which has 392,000 sales. So BYD nipping at their heels there in terms of the number of units sold. Okay. Now, in total units, BYD has a 27% market share and Tesla has 11%. So Tesla is the number 2 BEV seller in China by units. Okay.
Yep.
And I don't think any of that was a particular mystery to us, right? This is interesting. In terms of revenue, you would think that Tesla being number 2 in units would potentially be number 2 in revenue.
No.
It's not, right? And so this is a little bit different time frame. This is the last 3 months. And he's now showing just the top 20 revenue generating EVs in China. BEV SUVs, so he's narrowing it down even further. But the Model Y has generated about 4.5 billion in revenue over the 3-month period. And the next closest model generated just under 1 billion.
Wow.
Right. And one of the reasons is the average selling price of the Model Y is quite a bit higher at about $38,600 converted to dollars. And you can see the other ones next to it there, 17, 18,000, 10,000, 17,000, 15. So the next 4 are much, much cheaper vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's an interesting analysis, right? Don't just look at units, but look at revenue.
Of course.
Okay. And so the Model Y generated 5 times the revenue that the next highest revenue generating SUV generated in China over the last 3 months. All right. And just back to our BYD comparison again, Tesla generates revenue. This is in the month of July. Okay, so a different time period again. In the month of July, Tesla generated 1.8 billion in revenue on the strength of 2 models in China. And BYD had 18. Right, so much more challenging, much more complicated business that BYD has.
Yeah.
All those models.
And, the time is coming, not that far away, when the Tesla will be adding at least 1 new model. And there's every evidence at this point that the Cybertruck will eventually get to China as well.
That's right. So that will certainly help. And BYD, I should mention, generated 2.4 billion in revenue in July.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here's another way to summarize it. This is the last 12 months through July. Sorry about all these different time periods, but this is what AJ is sharing with us. Total Chinese BEV market, about 120 billion in revenue. Okay, and Tesla accounts for about 20% of that.
Yeah.
And BYD just a little bit higher, 21, almost 22%. Okay, so AJ's observations here, the Chinese BEV market has grown to 120 billion in size. This implies a $10.5 billion increase since the last 12 months, December 2023 number. So the Chinese BEV market is growing. Okay, the average selling price adjusted for volume is just under 23,000. Okay, and in July, the average BYD EV sold for 17.6, and the average Tesla sold for 39.2.
Wow. Yeah.
And he makes a comment. He says, "I find this highly reminiscent of the Apple/Samsung smartphone wars, with one giant difference: that was fought globally, where this is just really in China. Outside of China, BYD is no competition to Tesla, either in the US nor in Europe."
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So BYD is certainly a good competitor to Tesla in China. Absolutely. All right. Final point on this. Profit. AJ estimates that Tesla might take over 50% of the total profit in the Chinese EV market. before netting out the companies that are losing money,
Ah, yes.
right? So again, reminiscent of Samsung and Apple.
Right. Yeah, and many, many times Apple I don't know if it's still true, but I suppose it's not. Apple was way more than 100% of all the profits in the smartphone business.
Yeah. And that's probably true of BYD and Tesla.
Right.
Yeah. On this show, we like to show some new models ahead of anybody else. How's this one look, Randy?
Yeah.
Apparently, a bit of a heat wave in China has caused some problems, some bubbling problems on the vinyl coverings on some vehicles. But the aerodynamics of this actually could be surprisingly good.
Yeah, visibility could be a problem, but okay.
Visibility is an issue. Maybe this one's more to your liking.
A new kind of Hemi.
Starts to look but like a golf ball, though, in reverse.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the indentations here are quite neat. If you were, you know, a pedestrian and you were struck by this vehicle, it might not be too bad.
Yeah.
You could just bounce off, and here's the third and final image.
Oh.
Yeah, it might be a little hard to drive.
I've had my not on my Tesla, of course, but on other cars, I've had the rear view mirror glue melt in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
When it was 117 degrees out.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. So just word of warning here, if you're going with a protectant cover from a Chinese manufacturer, just be careful. You might end up with something like this. All right, let's take a look at the US EV market. This is the second quarter in the United States. Okay, and this data came from Kelley Blue Book, summarized by AJ. Tesla Model Y, 101,000 units in Q2 in the US.
Yep.
And that is 8 times the next highest EV sold, which is the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Yeah, SUV. Yeah. Hyundai Ioniq 5, it was 9 times higher than that. Toyota BZ4X, I don't know why they named it that. It's a ridiculous name, but it's 13 times higher than that. Cadillac Lyriq is 14 times higher, and so on down the list. So yes, the competition is here.
Yeah.
That's not a bad competitive market. Tesla enjoys a strong position. Okay.
Yep.
Interestingly, Tesla put this out on X after federal, state incentives, and as well as the gas savings. I know some people don't like to include that number, but this is from Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a new Model 3 or Y for as little as $15,000. You just need to move to Colorado.
Right.
Which isn't a bad place to be. That Model 3 in Colorado, you can get it for as low as $13,500. Again, this is after the gas savings projections.
Yes. And
it's also a pretty good deal in other states, you know, Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, etc. You know, low 20,000s.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they're not just selling in even greater numbers, that the number isn't even more out of whack.
Yeah. Yep. So that's good. More people will learn of this eventually, or there'll be some advertising on it or something, but people will learn about it. We won't go there. That's a hot topic. That's even more contentious than perhaps the political discussions that we have these days.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Let's check on the health of the EV market in Europe. Since we looked at China and the US.
Mm-hmm.
This is courtesy of Electric Nick. Highlighted his X handle there in the middle of the chart. And this is data for the EU, the UK, and something called the European Free Trade Association countries, which I believe is Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. Although, as I understand it, Switzerland may no longer be a part of this group.
Huh.
But anyway, it includes those countries. 2024 through the end of June is tracking right in line with 2023. So in Europe, we have not yet seen a whole lot of growth in the overall EV market.
A lot of folks are suggesting that that is primarily due to Germany.
Let's find out, Randy.
Okay.
Here's Germany. I love how you're one slide ahead of me all the time.
I try.
And Randy hasn't seen these slides ahead of time, by the way. So he's honestly one slide ahead of me every time. Yes, Germany is a culprit here, and Germany is the largest EV market in Europe, and Germany is a bit weak. Also for Tesla, in Germany, a lot of the EVs are owned by companies through leasing programs and provided to employees. So that hasn't helped them either.
And there's also less incentives right now. The German government not offering the same kind of incentives as they did last year.
Yeah, that's right. Now, on the bright side is the UK, tracking slightly ahead of where they were. Okay, France ahead of 2023. Not much, but a little bit of growth.
Yep.
Norway, about the same, but this is pretty much an all EV market at this point anyway.
Right.
Sweden, lower.
Hmm.
So the union activity in Sweden has certainly not helped Tesla.
There's also, I think, kind of a move towards again, a very high percentage of electric vehicles, and the hybrids seem to have kind of got a bump this year.
Yes, that's correct. The Dutch doing great. Italy coming to life.
Wow, look at that.
1 month.
Yeah.
Denmark, those Danes, fantastic, leading the charge. Okay. Spain, not bad. Iceland, terrible in Iceland. I don't know what's going on in Iceland. Maybe all the roads are blocked by lava or something and people don't want to drive anymore.
Well, they only have 12 people. So
there's a few more than that. There's a few more than that, Randy, but yes.
If one fewer bought a car, it has an impact.
But that's true. Yeah, and speaking of fewer people, Malta really doing their part to improve Europe's numbers. Now, Malta is interesting. It's a little island off the coast of Italy in the Mediterranean. There are 531,113 people, and they sell about 7,500 autos a year in Malta. So this is actually on track for EVs to be about 50%.
Wow.
Of auto sales this year.
Well,
if this doubles.
Well, I'll tell you what, if there's ever a trivia program about Randy, I have been on 2 cruises in Europe. Both of them stopped in Malta. So I've been to Malta twice.
There you go. So you know all about Malta. Yeah. All right. So that's our review of EVs around the world. And it's a little mixed, maybe, but not terrible. Okay. All right. I thought this was a beautiful Cybertruck. We may have seen it. We may have shared an image of this in prior shows, but this is from a different angle.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Nice. I like it.
Yeah. Speaking of not nice, this is Waymo's idea of an autonomous vehicle world. This is a parking lot, I believe, in San Francisco. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the Waymos are parking themselves or doing something, and for some reason they honk at each other. The cars can't, I mean, there's no one inside them. Surely there's a better way of communicating from one Waymo to the other besides using the horn. And so you can imagine the people that live next to this parking lot are not so happy. So Waymo needs to, figure out a way to make their vehicles quieter, particularly at 4 o'clock in the morning.
I believe I saw an update on this one where, in fact, Waymo has solved the problem, at least this parking facility.
There you go. They've probably given earbuds to the residents or something, right?
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Last week we talked a little bit about FSD and FSD miles and the safety of FSD and that kind of thing. This week I updated my chart here to include what I'm calling autos with supervised FSD. Let's say you're in the camp that believes that robotaxi will never work.
Wow.
Okay, that's pretty extreme in my view.
Extreme.
Okay, but I want to make sure we speak to those three people that are out there that believe that. We're very inclusive on this on the show, Randy.
That's right. Yes.
Right. So I added the third row. If Tesla sells an auto and also sells FSD software, charges, in this case, I'm assuming they charge $99 a month, run that out 5 years, you might get to profit something like about $10,000. So the profitability of a Tesla with FSD over a 5-year period could be about twice that of just selling the car.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Mm-hmm.
So not a bad business, not a bad way to double your profits,
Right.
essentially. Okay, if FSD was accepted around the world globally as a supervised software to improve the safety of vehicles. Okay.
Yep.
So, not bad. Nothing near the opportunity that robotaxi is, but still a step improvement. Okay.
Yeah.
Randy, we solved a great mystery recently. You know all that glass that was ordered for Elon's house in Texas?
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
Here it is.
Oh.
The secret mansion that Elon was building.
Oh.
All the glass that was ordered, that was paid for by the company. We found it.
And this is the south end of Austin, right?
Giga Texas and Austin, yes.
I saw people asking the question whether or not this was a good place to have a lot of glass because the sun would be beating in on those folks. Maybe it's tinted.
Must be. Yeah, this is where they're putting the new supercomputer cluster, calling it the Cortex.
Right.
So I'm sure they have thought this through, and I'm sure the glass is the right glass for the space. Yeah. Okay. You'll note it's hard to see in this image, but there's some little trenches here, 3 of them. And they are basically a way for people to evacuate the building on that side.
Oh.
I initially thought that they might be a way for Tesla to smuggle out the NVIDIA chips that they ordered for Tesla but wanted to give to xAI.
I see. That could be it too. Yes.
You gotta find some way to get those off the premises.
Brian White thought it had some. I think Brian White had mentioned something about an escape place for the dragons, or something.
There you go. That too. Yeah. Okay. Thanks to AJ again, summarizing this report from the International Council on Clean Transportation. I never knew such a thing existed, but it's great that it does. He says that Tesla has the fastest charging for BEVs based on a sales weighted average charging speed of the model sold. Number 2 is Hyundai Kia Group. And I'll just expand this so you can see the full chart.
There you go.
Tesla has a score of 100. So presumably that's the highest score you could get on this test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Hyundai Kia is at 79, BMW 54. So the third one on the list is about half of the score that the top one has. And it goes down pretty quickly from there.
You think you would think at some point these companies would let their pride just go away and give Elon a call. I mean, you'd think if you're just getting beat on safety, on charging, what do you call it? Centers, the charging stations, you're getting beat on over-the-air updates, you're getting beat on full self-driving, you're getting beat across the line on all these different categories. You would think at some point you just go ahead and say, you know what, we give up. We'll call you Elon. Yeah.
That would seem to be the prudent thing to do. And ideally, you want to do it before you are approaching bankruptcy.
Yeah, that would be a better time. Yeah.
Right. And AJ he says here, I checked the calculation method and the ICCT's methodology is quite solid. So he believes that this, however they calculated this, was good.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think as Tesla owners, I think that our experience has been good. So the data certainly feels right from that perspective. But I can't speak to how quickly or slowly BYD charges. I've never tried to charge one. All right, here's another beautiful Cybertruck out in the wild. This one might be the most photographed Cybertruck in the world at this point.
Huh.
But it's quite nice with the camping tent there on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, last week we talked about Lucid. We went into some detail about Lucid's challenges. Let's talk about Rivian. I believe you tasked me with this last week, Randy.
I believe we did.
You gave me some homework to do. So it's easy because I just need to look at AJ's account and get some charts from him on this one. So the research was very easy. All right, here's the average selling price for Rivian's vehicles per quarter for the last 6 quarters. Last quarter, it was $84,000.
Okay.
Okay, down from 94 a couple of quarters ago. There may be some sort of seasonality in this, depending on what kind of vehicle they're making, et cetera. Wouldn't read too much into this, but just the average vehicle last quarter for Rivian was sold at $84,000. Okay. Here's their gross margin. So not nearly as bad as Lucid, which was like more than minus 100%.
Yeah.
Right. But negative 39% gross margin. I guess you could say it's improving.
Yes.
Right. Although if you took off the Q1 of 2023 and just saw the last 5 quarters, you might say, well, it's not really improving. It's just remaining, negative 30, 40.
Yeah. In the ballpark. Yep.
In the ballpark. All right. So AJ listened to Rivian CFO and he says our gross profit loss per vehicle delivered was approximately $33,000. Okay, so they're selling a vehicle for 84, but they're losing 33,000. So ideally, they should be selling the vehicle for more than 84,000 so they don't lose money. Right? And it's interesting when you look at what comprises that loss, almost half of it is depreciation charges.
Mm-hmm.
So you build a big factory, you've got to depreciate it. Every vehicle bears a certain amount of that cost. And AJ here in the bottom part of this post sort of faults Rivian for overspending on their factory and spending billions of dollars and then having to rip it out and redo it.
Yeah.
Okay. There's also $1,200 of stock-based compensation. And they had charges of $2,400 per vehicle related to the cost of revenue efficiency initiatives.
Whatever in the world that is.
It's a great term. Sounds good. You can't fault them for revenue efficiency initiatives.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if Tesla did that, the stock would rocket because this is such a good term.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, AJ points out here that they overbuilt their factory, which he's calling exceptional waste. They had to completely change their R1 line, wasting billions in the process, he says.
Yep.
Okay. And then Rivian CFO suggests that they will reach gross profitability in Q4 of this year.
Uh-huh.
So not this quarter, but next quarter. And they're going to do so by reducing the cost of materials, right? Reduced fixed cost leverage, basically making more vehicles. Right, spreading that fixed cost over more vehicles. Increasing sales, kind of the same thing. Lower depreciation expenses. Increasing revenue per delivered vehicle, so the average selling price going up. And then sale of regulatory credits.
Yeah.
So that's great. Okay. And there's the transcript there of what he says. And then according to AJ, he says, well, this is great, but you know what? Gross profit is, becoming positive is great, but bottom line profit ultimately is what matters. So he says Rivian will have at least 10 more quarters of operating losses.
Wow.
All right. That's 2.5 years.
Wow. But not at the same rate.
Not at the same rate, maybe moving towards profitability, which is great, but it's still a long, painful road ahead for them.
Yeah.
And again, I hope they make it. I like Rivian a lot. But reaching gross profit is one thing. Gross profitability is one thing, but you have to also include in operational expenses,
right,
which AJ points out here equaled 3.8 billion over the last year. So it's a big number to overcome. And he shows you the little chart there in terms of how you get to earnings per share and all the costs involved.
Mhm.
And then furthermore, he says the R2 is only starting to ramp in the first half of 2026. And as we've seen with the Cybertruck, when you ramp a new product, that actually is a drag on profitability
Right.
until you hit some inflection point and it starts to contribute to overall profits, which for Tesla, for the Cybertruck, is expected to be in Q1 next year.
So have they indicated, I haven't read it. I pay so little attention to the competition. Have they indicated whether they're supply constrained or demand constrained? I mean, are they having trouble selling these through, but they could make a lot more? Or are they not able to make any more than this?
I don't know that they've said anything officially about that, Randy, that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It certainly seems to me that they're trying to sell as many Foundation Series Cybertrucks as they can.
No, I'm talking about these guys.
Oh, these guys. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, and we just, if they can't make any more, okay, I get it. I don't know why that would be.
Yeah.
But if they can make more and they're not selling more, then that is almost, I mean, it would be a great reason to change leadership because they're not selling that many. And if it's anything I've learned in 55 years or more in business is the one thing that you should be able to affect at the early stages when your numbers are low is to get increased sales by hook, by crook, by beating people to death or whatever it takes.
Yeah.
You find a way to get your sales up.
Yep. Yep. No, I hear you. I did also speak to somebody recently who owns a fleet of Rivian delivery trucks.
Okay.
Amazon makes it possible for individuals to start companies and own a fleet of trucks, and they get, a certain service area.
Right.
He owns, I think, 57 of them.
Okay.
And he says, by and large, they like the trucks a lot. They were well designed.
Uh-huh.
The drivers like them. The issue is the range on the trucks.
Oh.
And sometimes they have to send out another truck and offload the packages from the first one to the second one in order to complete the route.
Not good.
So
not good.
Not good. But overall, the trucks themselves, he likes.
Okay.
Yep. All right. And then finally, for Rivian, they have over 200 million of regulatory credits. And again, this is great. Tesla has these as well. Tesla has, almost 5 billion in regulatory credits, on the books for the future. And AJ is suggesting that if Rivian recognizes 150 million of these in Q4, that would help. That would be the primary margin driver for the quarter. So he suspects that we're going to see a nice little regulatory credit dump in Q4 for Rivian.
So AJ is suggesting that they're going to manipulate their numbers in order to squeak out a profit. Well, looky there.
Yeah, manipulate isn't the word he used.
That's the word I'm using.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. If you're going to tell people you're going to make Q4,
right,
you're going to reach gross profitability, then by hook or crook, you better get there.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Randy, here's a picture of the hottest refrigerator in the world. In this light, it looks like it's got a white wrap on it, but this is just the standard factory edition. So depending on the lighting, it can be quite striking.
Yep.
All right, this wouldn't be our show if we didn't have a few cartoons. This guy's pushing a giant rock up the hill, and one guy says curse, and the other guy says credit card debt.
Yeah.
He looks like he's under a bit of strain.
Sisyphus comes to mind.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah.
So I have one solution for that. It's humanoid bots.
Aha.
And we received an update from Figure last week, and we are expecting an update from Tesla any day now on Optimus.
Are we?
Yes.
Because?
A Tesla employee said last week that an update would be coming this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I can't wait.
So that red phone, that hotline phone that you have to Scott Walter, you'll be activating that soon.
Well, we didn't do a show with him yesterday because he's off skiing someplace. So maybe he'll be able to break into his ski vacation once that breaking news happens.
I don't know who goes skiing in the summertime, Randy. This is highly suspect.
He was in some place in Europe, I forget.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any skiing in Europe. He'd have to go to Argentina or New Zealand or something at this time of year.
Where he went? Oh, okay.
No, he's in Europe, but I don't think he's
Okay.
skiing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I thought the Alps had skiing year round.
I don't think so, unless I could be wrong. Maybe there's a glacier or something you can ski on, but
Yeah.
I don't think it would be particularly great skiing. Anyway, I recently updated this chart. Limix Dynamics, third one down in the red category, which is the Chinese bot makers.
Okay.
They showed a demo of their bot doing useful work operating autonomously. And it was a 2.5-ish minute video of the bot, just one continuous video.
Okay.
So that was enough for me to add boxes in that category for them.
Gotcha.
I believe also that Apptronic is capable of autonomous work, but I haven't really seen much of a video yet of them actually doing that. Although there was a Yahoo Finance video that came out a day or two ago that showed it briefly. Okay, but we're slowly but surely we're filling in the boxes on this chart.
I want to see voice on Optimus.
Yes. Yep. And that will be coming at some point. Okay. So stay tuned, Randy.
I will.
All right. Here's another cartoon. There's a guy here that seems to be crushed by the letter O in inflation. And Uncle Sam is standing by and he says, well, it looks like a zero to me. And the guy there has got a t-shirt that says average American.
Yeah.
So counteracting that with this. This is a chart that Brett Winton from 𝐼RC put out, I believe, yesterday. And this was quite interesting because it showed the cost of a computer that can generate ChatGPT-4 class output at 50 words per second. So back in February of 23, the cost of that computer was over $100,000. Okay. And then over time, they've worked this down. And so GPT-4o, the August 24 update, the cost to run that now is less, you need a computer that costs about $10,000.
Wow.
And so they're just connecting the dots, running this forward. And they're saying by August of 2026, that suggests GPT-4 quality output available locally on a high-end smartphone by August of 2026. Okay, so that's interesting because if you no longer need to access a computer in the cloud and you can access it locally on your device, then you have AI in everyone's pocket that doesn't have latency. It'd be very quick. Now, you may need to upgrade your phone. You may need a phone with higher, battery, like a longer lasting battery in order for this to work optimally. But this is the world that we're headed to very quickly, is putting basically a very powerful AI system in everybody's pocket.
Have you played with Grok 2 yet?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Not much. I've been enjoying seeing some of the other things on X that people have done with it. I haven't had time, Randy, really to play around with it.
I've only played with it a little bit, talked to some others and seen some other commentary. It seems to be quite good so far.
Yeah, I think they're in this kind of awkward stage right now. There's something better coming.
Yeah.
Right. And so they've given us this update, which is, improvement, but it's not where it's going to be in 6 months.
Right.
Yeah. There's a whale on the beach. He says, I got distracted by bubbles and I didn't notice the tide going out. So I think this is how a lot of us felt last Monday.
Yeah.
Right. And interestingly, the VIX had its largest 3-day percentage increase, or third largest 3-day percentage increase in history.
Yeah.
Now, this actually is not the full story because the VIX actually intraday, I think, was at 65 and it closed at 38. So intraday, the gain was even higher.
Yeah.
The spike was even higher.
Yeah.
The VIX, for those that don't know, is a measure of volatility in the stock market. It's a number that falls out of the option pricing calculation for the S&P 500. You can think of it as kind of a fear index of sorts. Okay, a measure of uncertainty. And the higher the level of uncertainty, the higher the VIX goes. So when there's some kind of global event, the VIX can just explode upwards. And that's basically what happened on Monday. Now, the good news is for investors that if you look forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, those explosions in the VIX tend to be followed by some pretty good returns.
Huh.
All right. So, you know, be patient, just sit there and do nothing and you'll be fine. Right. Now, on the flip side of this, we had the largest percentage decline in the VIX ever.
Okay, yes, of course.
Right. In the 6 trading days, the VIX went from 38 back down to 18. So it dropped 53%. That was the biggest drop we've ever seen in the VIX over a 6-day period.
Interesting.
Okay. And interestingly, all the other drops in the VIX were followed by some pretty good returns if you look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's a gray line for this one because we don't have those time periods yet. That's still ahead of us.
Right.
Okay. So whenever the VIX explodes, fear not. Even though the fear index is exploding, don't be fearful. You can quote me on that, Randy.
I would suspect that it would be more fearful if it was holding in the 20s or 30s over days or weeks. Yeah.
Sure. No, definitely more of an issue. Okay. So what happened last Monday? Well, a lot of people have talked about this yen carry trade.
Yeah.
For years, since 2016, last 8 years or so, you could borrow in Japan for essentially nothing.
Right.
So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you borrow millions and millions of dollars, millions of yen, as much as you can get your arms around, borrow in Japan and invest it elsewhere? And one of the favorite trades was to invest in Mexico, where the interest rates you can see recently in 2023 were as high as 12.5%.
Wow.
So I don't know about you, Randy, but borrowing at 0 and investing at 12.5% sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah.
Right? Let's do it all day long with other people's money. Right? Now, the problem is this, that the Japanese, back to this chart, started increasing rates.
Right.
Which kind of spooked people and caused a little bit of a, unwinding of this trade. In addition to that, the Mexican central bank also cut rates.
Oh.
So the trade was hurt on both ends.
Oh.
And then not to mention, exchange rates and that kind of thing too can mess things up a bit. But it's interesting to look at the returns on this strategy. This goes back to 2020. The return on the Mexican peso Japanese yen carry trade was right up there with the NASDAQ 100 total return.
Wow.
So if you missed the run up in NVIDIA, don't worry, just borrow in Japan and buy in Mexico and you got it covered.
As long as everything keeps going along. And as long as you don't get greedy and do it at margin.
Right. None of this is investment advice. I would not recommend doing the carry trade. This is for very sophisticated people who like to lose a lot of money.
Right.
Or in this case, make a lot of money for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. The yen carry trade has been going on for a long time, even prior to 8 years ago. But there's a lot of money associated with this.
Right.
So the bull here kind of brushed all this off and sent the bears packing.
Yes.
We should revel when we get to show this kind of chart. Usually it's the other way around. All right. Here is a Cybertruck with some new adventure gear from Mars Adventure Gear. They call this their Cyber Landing Kit for $27.99. You can get a nice little tent for your Cybertruck. So I thought this was pretty cool just to share these visuals from the top. And here's how it looks all packed up.
Wow.
Okay.
I love the branding.
Yeah, right. Mars Adventure Gear. That's a very forward-thinking name.
That's right.
Okay, Randy, it's quiz time.
Okay,
You ready?
I never get them.
You've got 2 seconds to tell me what this is an image of.
Oh, the new Hollywood, what do you call it? Yeah, thing,
The diner.
the diner.
Yeah. So it's going to have 34 supercharging spots. There'll be a diner. And we have now determined definitively that there'll be 2 screens for movies
Outdoors.
outdoors at the diner. Now, these people that live in these apartments are going to lose their view, or maybe they'll get a giant screen, TV in front of their window.
Yeah,
They can see the inverse image of it. But the diner is starting to take shape,
yeah.
and it looks very futuristic, very sleek. I don't know when this will open, but it's moving along,
Getting closer. Yep, yep, yep.
getting closer. Just a few more images here.
This will be an easy one for me to go visit.
Yeah, I was going to say you could go down and get firsthand images, and there's the Hollywood sign there in the distance.
Yeah.
So you can see it, it blends in with this neighborhood quite well. This round building with all the square ones. So that brings us to the end of our.
Oh, there it is, huh?
There it is.
I was so into it, I didn't even think about the time. Well, good, Cern. Yeah, I've always, so it will obviously be a blip on the earnings report in terms of what Tesla ends up doing at the charging stations in retail or in food services or entertainment services or other kinds of things, but it could truly be interesting. For instance, if this one turns out to be, a big winner and they can see an actual return on investment, or as opposed to, some of the other things that have been done, like over in Europe, I think they had one where they had a giant swimming pool or spa that they had set up. So this has always been intriguing to me. I know it's been intriguing to Larry Goldberg also. He's been interested in kind of on the ground services that might be offered, like washing or doing wheel treatments or what, the kinds of things that you might think people could benefit from. I've always wondered about if they weren't in a situation where there was a close restroom, why they wouldn't have some kind of decent potty associated with the facilities and whatnot. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways that you could take what they've done foundationally. And if you were a much smaller company than Tesla it will be, these could be really significant revenue streams.
Yeah, I agree. And for those viewers who are outside the United States and don't know, the restrooms, the bathrooms in the US are horrendously terrible. So there's an incredible opportunity
Yes.
for somebody to make restrooms that are clean and welcoming to people.
Right.
And there are some companies that have done a better job in recent years, but by and large, you go to any gas station bathroom in the US, you're looking for trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
But to me, if we're moving towards a robotaxi world, then does it really make sense for Tesla to focus on any of this? I mean, it's cool to have, I think some different, sort of opportunities for people here and there. But I would much rather see Tesla, or much more interested to see what Tesla's thinking about in the robotaxi world as far as layering services onto the vehicles at that point.
Right.
Right. In-car vending, for example.
Yes.
Right. What opportunity is there with that?
Yeah, that's what I've said. I don't know if you and I had that conversation, Cern, but I said it on the channel the day after they decided not to do the 8.8 meeting, said they were going to change the front end. I said they're changing the front end to make it into a vending facility.
Could be. If I was the CEO of Starbucks, if I was the CEO of Coca-Cola, I would be having a conversation with Elon to see what opportunities there might be in that realm.
Right.
or Pepsi. Maybe Pepsi actually is the more likely candidate with salty snacks and drinks.
Right.
So those kinds of things I think are much more scalable and much more interesting to me than a single diner in Los Angeles. As cool as it is, I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
Right. And it's going to,
it might be an influence from his brother.
maybe. Yeah. So that's neat. But yeah, if we want to talk about, moving the needle on some profitability, then layering services onto Robotaxi would definitely do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sir, as always, a very enlightening, very interesting, some stuff even I hadn't seen. Oh my goodness. This is a good week when you've actually found things that, I mean, I'm sitting in front of this computer pretty much 12 hours a day, researching the news. And so when you find some nuggets, I'm like, yeah, go CERN.
And yet you're still one slide ahead of me. That's amazing.
Sometimes.
Well, most of the time, Randy,
one of the first
give yourself some credit.
This is one of the first times I ever got the quiz right.
Impressive. Actually, you were very close with the number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a Brian White specialty, but I wanted to see if you could rise to the challenge.
All right, Senor. Thank you so much, as always, for coming on Thursdays. And we'll look forward to what you dig up for next week.
Sounds great, Randy. Thank you.
Great. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.